Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and we've got a very special broadcast for you. We are joined by both Steve and Andrew from Action for Assange on the ground outside of the DOJ. A lot going on in what's really exposing itself to be a show trial for the military-industrial complex, as a judge recently ruled that there would be no extra time given, even though they padded these already illegal indictments on Julian without warning just a short time ago. So, number one, guys, tell people how they can support you. I tell people right now, please follow them over on at action_4 Assange, and you can check them out at action4 Assange.com. You guys have been there for a few days. How can people support you? What are you up to right now?
So right now we're actually probably about 20 to 25 minutes away from getting a projector show set up. Right down pretty much on the corner of the DOJ. We'll have it projected up against the building. We're going to be showing Juan Passarelli's documentary that he recently came out with. We're going to be showing the two different teach-ins, as well as a clip from the Free the Truth event that happened a few months back from the director of the Women Against Rape over in the UK. So that's pretty exciting to be looking forward towards. Today, though, we were outside of the Washington Post for a while. Got to fly out down and around there. We put signs up all down along the entire city block, as well as the yellow ribbons for Assange and the trees on that side, as well as across the street. Yesterday, we were at the Lincoln Memorial for about 7 hours. From about 11 till 6. That was brutally hot, but a lot of fun. And that was just all handshaking. We played a couple different interviews that we had done. One in particular was the vigil from Saturday with Rebecca Vincent from Reporters Without Borders. And if you haven't had a chance to see that yet, I would absolutely recommend it.
Real quick, the sound at the Lincoln Memorial, the way that we have this massive megaphone. And it'll drown out a city block or three. And so we had it pointed right at the Lincoln Memorial, up a couple of little walkways of steps, and the sound was hitting the back of it and coming back. So we had a captive audience the entire time that we were there. From anywhere from like 40 to like 150 people were coming and going, sitting on the steps and whatnot. And we're blasting the show with Ray McGovern and Bill Binney into their ear holes. Like, it was fantastic.
Yeah. And then on top of that, it actually, we had Ian Schlackman join us. I think you were there with us at Chelsea's prison with him before she was released when we were here in DC in February. And then we did recently hear that one of the organizers out here in DC for a lot of things, in particular the Venezuelan Embassy Protection Collective, I think it was, Kevin Zeese, he recently passed away on Monday. So that was something that was just some weird big events going on down here in DC.
So, getting to where we're at in the Assange trial, very little media coverage here in the United States. Let's start there, especially during the election, not making it an issue, not really bringing it up. I think that Trump is obviously happy not to bring it up, since he loved the WikiLeaks this time last election year, and has been completely silent on the subject. Otherwise,
well, on that point, real quick,
yeah.
While we're talking about actions, there are Trump rallies going on again. Trump is traveling the country, filling stadiums, and what we need people to do, particularly the people of your audience, is to keep track of when Trump rallies are and to go to them on an issue-specific level, talking about Julian Assange, passing out flyers, bring as many free Assange posters as you can, because what'll happen, and I think we've talked about this before, either we get thousands of posters for free Assange to Trump rallies, which is particularly easy. I'll be doing it when he comes to Ohio or the surrounding states. But you put the free Assange message back into Trump's campaign without him saying it and forcing him to act upon it. And if you can get let's say 500 posters there in support of Julian. It forces the people at the door, the security guards for Trump, to either take those posters away and break that illusion for the person that's trying to bring that sign in when they see all the other ones that are allowed throughout the building, or you get the message into the room. And then at that point, all you need is someone inside with a ticket to start free Assange chants and interrupt what is happening and replace the energy in the room, like we did with the the Alex Jones event, and replace that energy in the room with free Assange energy, like where you get the crowd chanting in support of him, like we did at that event last time we were here in DC with you.
And speaking of that, Trump did just have a rally in North Carolina. I was watching it just before this broadcast. It's really funny because recently you had him try to say that the upper echelons of the military want these wars. That was 2 days ago. Yet he's never verbalized what actually took place in Syria and how he was unable to get troops out of Syria. And as you know, WikiLeaks it's really the only organization that made it known that this was factually the case after an OPCW investigation. So I think you're absolutely right. I think that those that voted for him in 2016 still think that's an issue. I think that the Trump administration and those surrounding him knew it was smart to bring up Snowden and kind of pivot to that base using Snowden as a vehicle just before the Supreme Court rules that, of course, he was outing illegal programs and didn't do anything wrong.
The travesty, right? Not that Snowden's case isn't important, but Snowden's not on trial right now. Snowden's not in court facing extradition to the United States. And for people, not that it's not important to talk about Snowden, but it has replaced the dialogue to where Trump is now using Snowden in the way that he used WikiLeaks in 2016. And that should fucking piss people off. It should not be okay that he only talks about one half of the equation, while at the same time, the Department of Justice releases a superseding indictment on June 24th, 2020, which opens the door for Sarah Harrison to actually be indicted and charged for helping Snowden go from Hong Kong to Russia. So all of this charade around Snowden isn't even legitimate. And all it's going to do is the same thing that Trump used WikiLeaks for, and that is to put a public appearance out. And I think if he's going to do that, then that fucking public appearance needs to be pardoning Julian Assange, not talking about Edward Snowden, not saying he's thought about it. It needs to be saying, if I'm going to do this, I at least have to fake it well enough that I'm going to save this man's life. Because most people will understand, if they are actually aware of the situation, that it is Trump that is going after him and the Department of Justice. But there will still be that contingent that he would otherwise get as well by doing the same charade he is with Edward Snowden. So I think it's a travesty that people aren't pushing back and saying that exact thing whenever the conversation about Snowden gets brought up.
I agree.
Because if you think about the way the war on terror has been propagated, it's literally the goalpost keeps moving. And now that Donald Trump is talking about Snowden, we shouldn't be happy with that. We shouldn't stop there. We need to move that goalpost again. And the goalpost should be talking about Julian. And then once he utters his name, we need to move it again until pardoning Julian, until we can actually get to the end zone where we can get these fucking war criminals in jail and some goddamn accountability for once.
I mean, that is obviously the goal. However, what we've seen throughout these court proceedings, after literally dragging the man out of an embassy that was really utilized more like a prison for Julian. I've got a couple of questions, guys. Right now, the media is running these pictures that Julian Assange is able to sit with his lawyers. Has he now been taken out of this odd encasement, or is this propaganda? What do you guys know about the situation there? Because we know in the last round of hearings, he was indeed in a Hannibal Lecter-like enclosure and not able to speak to his lawyers as these hearings were proceeding.
Well, I know they constructed a human zoo at the Old Bailey where this is taking place because they didn't have one there. we're shut out of viewing the court proceedings. So I haven't heard from one of the 3 journalists that they've allowed to be present for this, whether or not he's in the human cage. But that highlights a bigger issue. We're all mostly shut out of this. This is happening. The people who get to observe this trial are a handful of journalists. There's maybe 20 or 25 people altogether across the planet that are beaming in for this. We actually successfully lobbied the British prisons, Her Majesty's prisons, to provide a cloud video feed for like NGO observer groups like Reporters Without Borders or Amnesty. They said, yes, we're going to do that. They wrote us an email thanking us, and then they took that away immediately.
The judges, we have it up on our website. If you go to actionforassange.com, for Assange.com, we have a call to action out that we put out for today specifically about that. And that is the second warning. These hearings must be heard. And if you go in there, it actually shows the tweet. It's one of the hyperlinks that says denied right up there at the top. Yeah, if you hit that, it pulls up the tweet just to show you the travesty of this situation. So we, as the Action for Assange community, like Steve was saying, lobbied Her Majesty's prisons and forced their hand, essentially, through public pressure into getting this cloud video platform. They announced it, and they sent invitations out to people, and people could register online to use it. And it was a huge win. Like, this is a major success, because due to the lockdown, for whatever you think about it, better or worse, they're not allowing people to actually observe from the courthouse itself. They're allowing maybe up to 10 journalists, and about the same for the public gallery. So that fills up very fast. Without this video link, there's no international accountability, because the phone system had collapsed so many times at every hearing that was going on leading up to this. So our community got them to open a cloud video platform so people could get in here. Okay. And then after that, right, the judge says, well, I didn't say you could have non-governmental organizations like Amnesty International, Reporters Without Borders, etc., be in here to be observers. Like we said, journalists, there's no reason Amnesty needs to be here, and literally closed them out of court and said, you are not allowed to watch on our cloud video platform.
This judge has had prepared statements the entire way. Every time the defense and the prosecutors are arguing over a point, usually which has something to do with people having access to the trial, or Julian's legal rights or his human rights, she'll let them spar, but then she'll read from a prepared statement. So it's to call it a show trial is almost wrong. It's like a rerun at this point. Like from the judge's standpoint, it seems to be a predetermined outcome. Like she's not taking a moment to deliberate inside the courtroom. She's already got this shit worked out. It's a fucking farce is what it is.
So what we need people to do on that call to action that we have up right now, on there is the list of the almost every complaint line I could find on the internet for the UK court system. Whether it's for specific prisons, whether it's for regional complaints, copy all of those emails, put them in an email, and demand that non-governmental organizations like Reporters Without Borders, and if you so choose, the public, gets to view this, because this is the most important trial for free speech in the last 50 years, if not more. And it can't go by unseen. Like, they're literally trying to do all of this in the dark. Like today, the prosecution tried to argue that the only evidence that they're going to worry about in court that should be accepted are the ones that WikiLeaks revealed the names of informants, right? And Julian said, no, like gave an audible, like, no, you can't do that in court. And the judge said, if you talk again, we're throwing you out.
We will continue this trial in your absence if you give us one more outburst. Like you would scolding a fucking child. Like, this is, again, it's less trial and more staged production, so that the Five Eyes government can show you what happens if you dare publish verifiable evidence about their war crimes.
It does seem that way, and I don't think people understand the gravity of this situation. You think censorship online has been crazy the last, 5-6 months via the coronavirus. You have no idea what censorship is going to mean after something like this, where they may say, you know what? We might have to take you and your family at this point. We're at a point where in Australia right now, if you are making Facebook protest posts about anti-lockdowns in Melbourne, Australia, you're being arrested. This is your right to organize against tyranny, and just by posting that on social media, you're going to jail. Think about exposing the crimes. Australia should be ashamed of themselves, first of all, for not going harder to get Assange out of the situation, since, number one, he's their citizen. He's not even a U.S. citizen, and they're doing nothing of the sort. There's a few politicians in that region that have advocated for Assange, but obviously it's not the government's position. That's number one. But number two, what's going to happen if you are exposing actual high-level corruption? All of a sudden, it might not be you. It might be Julian and his wife and his kids. I mean, this is how authoritarian governments actually work. And they're so brazen and out in the open right now, I think everything's on the table.
Yeah, and that's why we need people to get involved. We're going to be putting out actions basically every day for people to do online. But the most important thing is be the protest in your community for Julian Assange. I know your audience has heard this from us a million times, but be that one person. Go print 500 posters, go to Home Depot, get a staple gun, a couple racks of staples, and just walk down the street and start putting posters up that say free Julian Assange, no more torture, what have you. Because unless we reach people on an individual basis on a mass scale, this is going to be allowed to go through. So we need digital pressure campaigns. We need decentralized hometown style actions, because that's one-on-one is the only way that we can do this. And by contacting in mass these institutions, it at least puts them on blast to understand that the world is watching. And one of the other things that we're super proud to be doing right now is we actually are coordinating with Reporters Without Borders to promote their campaign to bring drastic amendments to the Espionage Act. What they're trying to do is they have like an 8 or an 11-point plan that more or less makes it so that there is a public interest defense built into the Espionage Act, that it cannot be used to target journalists and whistleblowers. So that's up on there as well. That's the RSF petition for contacting congressional candidates, because they're trying to get this pushed through at a federal congressional level to get this amended. But the other part of it is starting a national dialogue about how and why our media is in such disarray. And that's coming from every branch of government. We're focusing mostly on contacting congressional candidates. And whether you're politically affiliated with them or not is irrelevant. And it honestly makes it a little bit more fun. Because right now we have every candidate endorsed by Donald Trump in a battleground state. We have every candidate that has with Justice Democrats and brand new Congress, and we have every libertarian running for federal office down the East Coast.
And we also have about 10 minutes before the vigil.
Yes.
So we got to wrap.
All right, guys. Steve, I know that there is probably a slow news day broadcast, but I know you're doubling down on the vigil and you're double streaming. How many more actions are there coming up this week? How can people get involved on the ground before you guys go?
We're doing things every day. Tomorrow, we'll be in front of the British Embassy. Thursday, we're marching from CNN
to Google to Fox News.
To Fox News. Friday on 9/11, we'll be in front of the Australian Embassy. If anybody's in the DC area, please come down. Follow us on Twitter, action_4 Assange. We have our event schedule up here. People are going to be here for 3 weeks during the entire show trial. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm posting regularly about all this at Slow Newsday Show. And you can tune in to the vigil in about 10 minutes on Action for Assange.
And one of the other things, real quick, 2 seconds.
Yeah.
If you watch a content creator, regardless of political affiliation, that is not telling you start to finish, like Jason does, like we do, like so many others, about the trial of Julian, I recommend pulling financial support from them, or at least warning them, hey, if you do not cover this, I will no longer support you. Because this is such an important case that an independent journalist is either obligated by their profession to cover this or has some other ulterior motive, in my opinion, because you cannot be neutral on the First Amendment. There is a side and there is a time to take it, and it was yesterday when this trial started. And whether that's someone that has a large mainstream platform that has been playing the man and trusting the plan, they need to fucking come out and do the right goddamn thing. And if they don't pay attention to that shit anymore. Because there's a man that for the last 500 days has spent 24 to 23 and a half hours a day in solitary confinement. And it's about goddamn time that we start doing something about it.
Sounds good, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, you can go tune in over at both the Slow Newsday channel and Action for Assange, where you can join those guys right now for a vigil in about 10 minutes. Later on, fellas.
Thank you, Jason.
And there they are. Remember, all my documentary films are free right here, right now. Go check out The Vigil. If you want to learn more about Assange and the actions that are taking place there and what's going on with the trial, all the documentary films, they're free in the playlist section. Thumbs this video up, subscribe, and share. Remember, action4assange.com is the website. Follow those guys over on Twitter. And remember, I'm fully demonetized here. You can support me financially through the GoFundMe, $5, $10, $15. It means the world to me. It's how we're able to do this thing. So I need your support now more than ever. And by the way, we just posted a little bit more to Rockfin. Steve and Action for Assange are also on Rockfin.com. I'm on Rockfin. That's where I'll be if I do get kicked off this platform. So consider making the free account at least, or supporting me there as well. Guys, I love you, and I'll see you on the flip side.